as you pointed out, with our existing customers, we have this huge home field advantage. A relation, we already have your files. Again, that is one conversation.
Yep.
But even at that kind of scale, this kind of scale where we are, 18 million subscribers. When you look at, there's like several hundred million productivity suite subscriptions in the world. What that's really saying is like, and you look at the evolution that we've had from being on like desktop apps in our file system to being in our browsers. Something like 95% of the TAM are going to be people for whatever reason aren't doing file syncing in Dropbox. And so it's like super important. Dash, you actually don't need files in Dropbox. It works great if you do, but it's a separate product for that reason, because we want to open up the whole TAM. And then frankly, we'll just as happily organize your stuff in OneDrive or Google Drive or anywhere else, just like we would the content we have in Dropbox. And this is part of, we're trying to, there's a lot of reasons for this. I mean, we want to disrupt ourselves. Tech is always a moving target. And then we look at a lot of the great, we're going through our generational transition, navigating that switch in eras of computing. And, that's a hard thing to do. And I think it's something you only really get to do if your company's been around for, 10 years or more. But at some point, your company absolutely will reach the top of one S-curve, have to start another. And when I've studied, as you'd imagine, I've studied all the companies that have done that successfully. Adobe going from selling you Photoshop in a box to SaaS and Creative Cloud. I think Netflix is a good example I think about and talk about a lot, right? So they were very early with content and digital content. They started out by mailing you DVDs. And then they realized that the future was going to be streaming. And they had to navigate that transition, right? So they had this DVD mailing business, which was a pretty reasonable scale, but also capping out and not the future. But turned out the best thing they could do for their DVD mailing business was actually add streaming, not like make a better envelope to put the DVD in or something, right? Because that being able to like bring your customers along that transition seamlessly, like it just showed up as Netflix on my credit card statement the entire time.
Yep.
But that audience helped them bootstrap a victory in the streaming wars, right, which were equally competitive, maybe different competitors. But most importantly, unlocked a TAM that was like 10 or 50 times bigger. And it's not just Netflix. Newspapers had to go through this. There's a lot of examples of how do you navigate that S-curve, and I think that's something, as a founder in the double-digit year kind of cohort, you have to learn from these kinds of transitions and design them intentionally. And so, I mean, there's some differences. Like files are not going away, right? There's a reason those 18 million customers are on Dropbox and not somewhere else. We do a lot, especially if you're in the, as I was saying, the creative community, if you deal with big files, if you do a lot of external sharing. Dropbox works equally well with every platform. So there's a lot of advantages we have in FSS2. I don't mean to say that's done, and it's certainly not going away. But you have to both address, it's one story for our existing customers, but we also want to unlock, a reason for all the people who didn't raise their hands about using Dropbox, give them a reason to use Dropbox and Dash.
All right, last one, because we're just about out of time. There's other stuff we'll talk about at a sequel sometime, go to market and teams. There's something that you said that I've been telling almost every founder I talk to, which is, unless you're growing at insane rates today, you have to refound your company today in the age of AI. You have to go back to first principles. And we're not all at Dropbox's. What's your ARR again? I get it's a
We're
lot.
$2.5 billion.
Okay, 2.5. Yeah. Not everyone's at $2.5 billion, but I say, listen, protect your base, but you've got to sit down and say, what company would I build in 2025 and this is exactly what you did, right? So, just one tactical question. How much of your time do you sort of spend on Dash and AI versus the existing 2.5 billion of AR? Because it is a cognitive challenge, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, first on how to navigate these things. I mean, these inflection points in tech or these changes. There's a lot of history here that I think every founder should learn. And frankly, a lot of what I learned was from reading Only the Paranoid Survive, which is by Andy Grove. He was one of the early engineers at Intel. He became CEO. And Intel is navigating this transition. They actually, we know them as
again today.
Yeah, yeah. So that, again, it never stops. So I think there's like understanding the history and the theory and the grounding in that. And then the answer is I spend a lot of time on Dash, but I spend a lot of time in I am quite scattered across many parts of the business. But then also, on the core business, and then also like building that bridge between the products, right? Because we want that. We don't want to build two. It would be ironic if our contribution was to fracture the content experience even more, because like you shouldn't have like one UI for your files and a completely different UI if it's a link. We want to have this coherent, cohesive experience, and so. But I also still spend time thinking about, okay, there's still a lot I would do to like keep disrupting ourselves. And sometimes you think of it sort of negatively like that, or if I wanted to like attack us, I would do one thing. But another is just like, there's so much room for reinvention in general, and we sort of become blind to what we see because we're used to it. But digital music had many chapters of evolution, right? From like literally ripping CDs into MP3s that were in files and folders, to then iTunes is like, this is dumb. You should have like a music catalog. There should be artists and album and playlists. And then Spotify is like, wait, why am I paying for songs one at a time? This is medieval. I should have, everything like an infinity catalog. And by the way, music should be multiplayer, right? I should be able to have shared playlists. I should know what my friends are listening to. It should be intelligent. Yep. Right? I shouldn't have to add songs to a playlist one at a time. I should be able to have smart playlists. I should have like an AI DJ. I should have stuff in between, like these auto-generated playlists. So there's like this drumbeat of innovation that's happened there. But then when I look at the content, and that's like the content experience at home, right? And everything works this way. Netflix, Spotify, YouTube. They don't like show you like, here's 15 million movies starting with A, right? It's like this auto-curated, intelligent learning experience. Then I go to work, and it's like, where is that? Right? Why do I have like a file browser on one side of my screen that's like literally hasn't changed in 40 years? And why do I have a web browser on the other side of my screen that has so many tabs open I can't even see text or titles anymore?
Yep.
Like either this is it and we've cracked it and this is what we'll be doing in another 40 years, or there's a better way to do it. So I think then it's like, all right, well let's work back from that like ideal solution.